Welcome in to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse, the business voice of Chicago for you right here, 21.6 The Net. This is not your grandfather's financial literacy or business show. Bill brings in guest thought processes and just unique ideas on how to really expand your life and your smartness. I called it smartness.
What you called it, smartness.
That's it. Today, mind power, which I'm running low on, obviously.
See, it's those new lips coming back to haunt you again.
That's right.
Yeah, when you fly by the seat of your pants on that new intro. But thank you, Ken.
Good to have you, brother.
Happy Friday to you as well. Happy birthday to Drew Casaccio. Want a big shout out to him. And we got a special one today.
Yeah.
This is we're kind of taking a different direction in being more like being a business owner.
Yep.
And we have a special guest, Victor Fralof, in today.
Crowd goes wild.
And if those two or three of you who watched last week, you remember Max Lambright.
Yep.
And
CEO.
Victor is
a lonely guy,
8-time CEO, because he's a serial CEO kind of guy,
and a very lonely guy,
and very lonely guy, right? We talked about the loneliness of being at the top, but here's where Victor comes in, a partner of Max's, but Victor also has his own business, and he talks about mind power. So Victor, come on in, say hello, and let's blast some mind power going on around here. Maybe we can intravenously get it into Kent.
Well, thanks for having me on this. It's a true pleasure, and I'm sure today will be a fun experience for Kent. So Get ready.
Oh, we always have fun here. Absolutely, that's the point. But we like to to bring some good content and help all of our good listeners who are trying to build their own businesses.
Yep.
And many are learning on the fly. Many are perplexed at the different things that you need to know to start a business, because we don't know everything. We aren't taught everything. We aren't taught anything, quite honestly. So you kind of go by the seat of your pants and trying to build a business because you think you have a great idea, because you're coming out of that corporate world, and you were the senior vice president of sales, and I can go hang a shingle up and I'm going to be a consultant to Fortune 100 sales companies, and they find out it's just not that easy, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's a struggle.
And you've done it. You've had several businesses.
Oh yeah, and each one has always been a different learning experience. You think you could apply what you learned in business A for business B, and you think, oh, well, that is not going to work in this case. So how do I pivot?
Yeah, you're right. Well, different times. We outside influences, technology is a big one, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you weren't thinking about AI right now and how is that going to affect your business, you're already probably behind the 8 ball in this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They're saying that AI is going to manage something like 80 to 90% of your day-to-day in your business if you actually implement it to its full capabilities.
Yeah, I'm hearing different things about this AI, and then what I hear and then what I see are two different things. I hear some tell me that AI is really to be used in the corporate world to do the mundane jobs that you don't want to do, so it frees you up to be used more of the creative side. However, we're learning that that's not necessarily what it's being targeted for, right? Mm-hmm. One of my other concerns is how is AI going to affect the economy? How's it going to affect the markets, right? The New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ exchange, and how will that affect us in return, and the rest of the world? Because what goes on here in the U.S. affects every other place in the world, every economy.
Absolutely. So excuse me. I did a little research into how AI is being implemented with the current economy and how it's being used in the stock market. And what's interesting, I don't know if you know this, AI is being ChatGPT. We'll say
Yep.
that one specifically. People are utilizing it to see and predict the movements of the stock market for the day based on all the information they're providing.
Yeah.
And there's a high accuracy actually that people are finding to what it predicts in terms of the movement and direction of the market and where it's going, which is kind of scary.
Right, because that would enhance the direction it goes. So,
Right.
because I'm very familiar with how markets work, and that would, if everybody's thinking one way,
Right.
the market gets pushed more
Right.
that way. If they're investing, there's other thoughts about that.
Right.
Well, we can argue that everybody believes right now we're about to go into a recession and the market's going to be on a downward spiral. But typically, a market loves to move in the direction that creates the greatest amount of pain.
100%.
Right? Yeah. So if everybody thinks it's going down, up it goes.
So let me see if I'm tracking here. We're afraid of artificial intelligence manipulating the markets, but we're not afraid of intelligence manipulating the market. Okay.
Well,
So
I really don't get too far down the road on this this one, because this is not what we're here and to talk about.
I'm just trying to track. That's all.
It's you just stick to your Bitcoin, you'll be fine.
Once inflation's done, it'll come back.
It's going to hit 30,000. Everybody believes it.
Oh yeah. The thing that I'm most fascinated about with AI is how it affects psychology and the human behavior, because utilizing the same example with the market, if people are utilizing the AI to determine which direction it's going and they jump into that direction, and then all of a sudden it reverses in a hard fashion, a lot of people who are, retail traders, wannabe traders, people who are just trying to make an extra little dime or nickel, they're going to lose everything in the process because they trusted the tool that could predict it, and then the psychology drives that. So they're like, oh, I'm going to get in on this momentum. But then the market does what the market does, which is create extra pain.
Yeah. And I would argue that I don't think there's many people that get into investing in the market to do so to make a nickel or a dime or just a little bit of extra money. Everybody, I think, who gets in the market has that dream of making it big.
Yeah.
Right.
Hitting that one stock that just skyrockets.
Yep.
And if you do, that doesn't mean you're a great trader. That means you got lucky. And watch it, because the market is a lot like a casino. It loves to get its money back.
Oh, absolutely does.
And it has its own ways of doing so. But let's talk about this mind power, and you're a mind coach, both personally, professionally, to people. This is one of your businesses. But what does that entail? What is being a mind coach? What is that about?
So mind power, most people think about mindset and they think, oh, it's just a frame of mind looking at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And they focus on adopting and developing the skill set to be able to have different perspectives and a stronger mindset. Being flexible when you need to be flexible, rigid when you need to be rigid. Mind power takes it a step further, because mind power is not only mindsets and perspective and all the tools associated with that, but it's having the emotional resilience built in to withstand whatever gets thrown at you. So being able to pivot on a sudden move to go a different direction if your business needs it, or if life happens and you need to, say for instance, you get hit by a car and 2 of your family members die, but you have to go close and run your business.
Yeah.
How do you have the flexibility and the rigidity to do that? Well, that's where mind power comes in, because you can grieve and then pivot, where you can focus on the one task that you need to accomplish 100% and then pivot and mourn and deal with this. And this is a horrible example.
Well, but it's I see your point, and I believe in this, because you're right. Life does happen, and you don't control that. And things are going to happen in business that you never expected.
Right.
and you do have to pivot. Now, one of the problems I think a lot of business owners can run into are they freeze, right? They don't want to make that decision, that tough decision.
Right.
Because there's a number of people out there that they just don't like to be the decision maker, right? And in the trading pits, we used to say, make the trade, manage the risk. In other words, make a decision and then manage it.
But and correct me if I'm wrong, because you are the expert at this, Victor. The brain and the mind are two different things. Yes?
You're onto something. Yes.
Right. So I think I think somebody, I'm going to pick on you, Bill. Extremely intelligent, extremely a good businessman. Your brain knows business, right? And to the pivot point, which I think Victor was saying, your mind goes, I don't know if that's the right move because my brain says this.
Well, you have your gut.
So how do you help people, Victor, separate that for that mind power? Because we can go back to the ant and the elephant and all that kind of stuff, right? But how do you listen to your mind and perhaps not your business brain?
So you talk about separating the two when you should be combining the two. And here's what I mean by that. Your unconscious mind is the operating system that operates and runs everything in your body and most of your mental programs. So the way you respond to stimuli, the way you respond to feedback or information, things like that. And I'll give you an example from my own life. So that way there's an understanding here. So when I was younger, much younger, I was always told that I'm not worth more than $20. Okay. So I believed that at some point, and that became my operating system. That became the program that I ran whenever I'd have those conversations about salary, whenever I'd have those conversations about relationship and self-worth, because I had that association, that program running saying, you're not even worth $20. Okay. Unconsciously, that was running my day-to-day life. The conscious mind, the business mind, was the one that was thinking, hey, we need to make millions here. We need to generate some more revenue. This is the salary that I want. So the two were in conflict. All right. My business brain and my personal brain, my mind, were in conflict because they had two different beliefs and they were operating with two different operating systems or programs. So I had to do the work and really analyze and look inwardly. What do I believe about myself? Because I'm the crux of the two conflicts. It all comes down to me. So I said, actually, I believe that I'm worth more than $20. I'm worth $100 million because of the value that I provide, the asset that I am, as well as the person and the human being that I am. I'm no longer allowing the person who defined me or gave me that definition by which I constrained myself to have impact in my life. I'm going to be the impact and influence in my life.
I like that.
Combine the two.
Yeah, I think that's important. If you're a business owner or you're trying to build a business, that's a very important thing to understand because, there's a lot of influences that come at you that say, why are you trying to do this? Who are you to be doing this? I know people smarter than you. I know people who could do, and this is the way you should be doing it, and so on and so on. A lot of negative feedback. I've had people tell me, you can't do what you want to do. I know because we've been trying for 13 years and it doesn't work. And I'm sitting there saying, no, it doesn't work for you. Because I have a strong enough mindset and mind power to say, oh, that's fine. You believe that for yourself, but I don't. I believe I can do this. And that's a very important factor as a business person building a business. You need that mindset. But I have one quick question for you to throw in.
Sure.
Where does the gut come in?
Oh.
This is good.
Yeah.
So the gut, that instinct or the intuition, that's your connection to the higher power, the universe, whatever, because your unconscious mind, the subconscious, however you want to call it, is connected to everything and anything. And if we were to dive into quantum physics and energy and all that, there's a lot of science that shows how intuitively we are connected to the universe in which we live and everything that we're doing. So that instinctual, hey, you should call that person, or hey, you should take this trade right here. you've taken in all this information, you're processing it, and you also have a connection with everything. And so you know intuitively there's going to be a movement, say in this position, or this business opportunity here is going to bring you millions. You pursue it because you listen to it.
Right. So we do grow up saying, listen to your gut, right? We've heard that comment many times, but I always thought it was more along the lines of your gut is telling you, and it's coming from your brain, from all your experience and knowledge and years of learning. But your brain isn't bringing it out in the forefront, right? It's coming through your gut saying, this is something's going to happen. You need to be alerted and adjust, or this is a good opportunity, or this is not. Because I'm a firm believer in believing in your gut instincts. And I can tell you, I have put it to the test in big time ways. And I'm involved in something now that it's a big gut check, but we'll see. We'll see. I still believe.
Well, good. Let me ask you this, Bill. In terms of your gut, you've tested it. You've gone through it. You've experienced listening to it, not listening to it, and all the the positive and negative, we'll say, consequences in quotes. All right. So throughout the testing process, you've really refined the way that you listen to it and the way that you process it, so that way external stimuli don't interfere with how you take action. Correct?
Are you saying that I still don't question it?
No, I'm saying that you now are more responsive to it, and you act first before you start thinking too hard on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Short answer, yes.
Okay. So this is where it gets fun, because we've got about, I want to say it's about 40 million kilobits of information bombarding us at all times. All right. And as a business owner, this is important to note, because we're going to have all these distractions, all these shiny toys, all these things we got to handle, everything coming at us. We've got to do everything, especially if you're solopreneur. But our brain can only focus on 40 kilobits of information. So when you're starting to jump into business, doing it for yourself, navigating it, going through relationships, networking, communications, things like that, if you've really practiced listening to your guts with the knowledge that you have, and being in tune internally with understanding, okay, this is my gut saying this is a good opportunity, and I trust it, and I'm not going to let this layer of external stuff distract me from that, you could be a very successful, very powerful business owner, because you're trusting and you're acting instead of letting external stimuli.
The trusting is the interesting word there. I agree with you. You have to trust it. You also have to understand, you're making decisions, and one of the biggest concerns a solopreneur or any entrepreneur is going to have is am I making the right decision? Right? That's constantly the question we're asking when we have to make a decision. And the reality is you're never going to know that.
Right.
Until further down the road. And my point has always been to folks is make a decision and move forward, and then manage it. If you think you're going to make the right decision every time because you take the time to think things through, well, good luck. I don't see that happening too often. And
right.
You make what you feel is the best decision given the information you have and the knowledge you have at the time you need to make it.
Absolutely. And anything, so I'm 100% on board with you on that, because the analysis paralysis is where you lose out on opportunities and growth.
Yeah.
The funny thing about making a decision is the scariest step of any sort of growth is that first step, stepping out of your comfort zone and just taking an action, whether it's positive or negative for your business, whether it's positive or negative for yourself. Can you imagine how much more time and energy people would have as business owners if they would just practice and get very efficient at taking that first step?
Yeah. Absolutely. I liken it to when I first started in the trading pits in Chicago here. I was at the Chicago Board Options Exchange, and there was a group there, and they would only hire you if you had PhDs, and they were very snobby kind of people, and that's a world of huge egos to begin with.
Right.
But these guys had even bigger egos, but it was interesting because when the market turned, let's say just there was a big down day, these guys could not react. They couldn't, because markets don't wait for you to go back to your books and learn about, what's happening,
Right.
and this is how we react to it. Markets have a tendency to say, screw you, I'm going to do this, and you're either going to get on board or you're going to get crushed. And that's what happened to these guys, is that their company went out of business because they got crushed in one day.
Poor dudes.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of business in general, not just trading bits. It's right people, right place, right time kind of thing.
Right. But that's where having the skill to be able to adapt and pivot is so crucial as a business owner, because if you're stuck in the decision-making process, like if you're stuck, you are bleeding, and you need to you need to hemorrhage the bleeding. You need to, tourniquet it, whatever the term is for it, and pivot, right?
I totally agree. And we see this now still. There are some dinosaurs running some major corporations in this country right now.
And minor corporations.
And minor, and they're stuck in their old school mentality. And they're having a hard time understanding why they're having so much difficulty running their businesses and growing their businesses. It's, I give you all kinds of examples, but it's the mindset we're talking about, the mind power we're talking about. But well, you're squinting over there, Kent.
No, I'm fascinated. So I'm a curious person by nature. I'm a curious entrepreneur, and so I just try to soak a lot in. I like studying the people. In the green room, we brought up Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And Magic Johnson, it was always my hero growing up.
Great guy.
But I study him as well, but not necessarily during their basketball. I like their mentality to the grind during basketball, but how these gentlemen have made more of an impact after. Right, because we see a lot of sports people, blow their money and become addicted to drugs and whatever.
Right.
But there are certain that really have done well for a lot of people, not just themselves. So, and that's why with Victor and you, I take a lot of notes and I try to digest it, because I'm just curious. So my mind is always going. I was real quick story is looking at a different venture with a couple different partners. As most good entrepreneurs, other opportunities start opening up.
Yeah.
And one of them's like, hey, you don't seem real excited. And I'm like, no, I really am. My mind's just going 5,000 miles a minute right now with ideas, possibilities, next steps. So it's not like I'm doing cartwheels. I'm not like Chris Farley doing cartwheels, like, hey, I'm sitting here and my mind is just barreling at 310 miles an hour. And then I try to reel that back in, right, and say, slow down, let's slow.
Well, you're not smiling when you're getting, so you play basketball. You're not smiling when you're setting up for that shot.
Right.
You're smiling after the shot's been made.
Correct.
Because you're focused.
Yeah.
And that a business owner is going to always be focused on some aspect of his or her business. You can't help it.
Yeah.
You can't stop it. We talk about work-life balance and don't bring your work home and all these old stuff we grew up learning or being told. It's who you are. If you're an entrepreneur, it's who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, the core.
And at all 24/7.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, when I was 14 years old or whatever, mowing lawns and delivering papers, what's rolling through my mind is, can I do it at the same time? How do how do I? How
Well,
do
you're going to go around cut every neighbor's yard?
you know what I mean?
Drop off
You're
a
just
paper
like,
when you're done?
and how do I?
Not a good business plan.
How do I pull that mower? How can I pull that mower behind me safely on my Schwinn 10-speed? You're going through all these things, and my mind is that way. And you're right. When you're an entrepreneur, you look at every way that way. My struggle, as Victor said earlier, is melding the two. Right. So I'm 53 and I've tried to separate. All right. I should be in my brain now. I should be in my mind now. As he said, we got to learn how to make this. So I'm sitting here right now trying to understand that as well.
Well,
right?
you're lucky. You got a head start.
Yeah.
Because it didn't hit me until I was 60. so you're ahead of the game already, Ken.
Yeah.
Maybe I was practicing it at an earlier age, but it has all come together here in the last year and a half, without question. But Victor, what do you think about a guy like Kent? I think he needs to come see you professionally, and you can help him meld those minds together, because he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Well, it's round anyway.
It's it's big old round ball. But what do you say to that, Victor? I mean, it's somebody who's trying to meld those two things together.
So my first question right off the bat would be, what are the values you hold dear for your personal life? The personal aspect of yourself, and the values you hold dear on the professional side. Because if you're trying to blend the two together and be your ideal self, 100% congruent or aligned, both personally and professionally, then you've got to ensure that you know what your values are, what you hold dear, especially if you're looking at business partners too. Because funny enough, people are different and not everyone's going to have the same values as you.
Right.
So you got to look at business partners, life partners from a value aspect. Do their values match up to the life that you're trying to live? Or do they differ? Because if they differ, then you know that there's going to be differences of focus, direction, things like that. Yeah, Same thing with your business.
Yeah. So like the original founders of this station, I think our personal values lined up really well.
I would agree with that.
And not necessarily the business values. And then my second partner, neither really. I mean, I love the guy, but his personal values were a lot different, and so were his business values.
Yeah, I see that too.
And we didn't really move. I mean, there was growth, but as far as fiscally, we didn't really move.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And now with the business partners that I have, and it's a whole long story, Victor, we get into later, but
please, anytime.
I was the black widow of partners for a while.
Well, we haven't seen that end yet.
Well, Coach came through a quadruple bypass. So
so that's true.
Hopefully he broke the jinx. But
for now,
but now the business owners and Bill, you know one of them really well, is I think those values are there on both sides, which now we're starting to pick up steam, which is interesting. So as you say that, I think it did take me a while to say, okay, I do have actually different values on the personal and business. And now how do we match that?
It's interesting for me, Victor. And I think this can be for you as well, Kent, was the reason why I think it didn't happen to me until I was 60 was, the whole thing didn't click. All of a sudden something clicked. Something changed. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that what I'm doing now, the business I'm building now, is a calling. And I don't know that I'd had a calling before. And I was seeking it out. To be honest with you, I mean, you're a deacon, Kent, and I was looking at potentially becoming a deacon. I'd had some conversations, but it never came to me.
Yeah.
That calling never came to me. And then this calling came to build this business. And everything fell into place. It was really, really interesting.
In the zone.
It is a zone. It is absolutely a zone. I mean, I came up with the idea in February. By the beginning of August, I had a team lined up to build every aspect of what I needed.
Right.
And then they were high quality people that I was meeting as I went along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
But I knew maybe that was my gut.
So, Victor, you're a master sales trainer. I mean, you have, Harvard Review. I mean, you're the real deal.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, and to me, I don't even know how to really say this, but there's that cool part. Finally, they got it. But you've had to fire clients, I'm sure, because you're just like, right. So and that's got to be kind of tough for you who understand the power of the mind and to say, all right, now I'm just, sorry, dude, you're not getting it. And now I walk away going, I knew I was a pile of crap. No wonder. I'll go work at McDonald's, right? So how do you work with that and deal with that?
So I approach it from a very loving standpoint, and I think a lot of companies lose the mark on that because they try to, they have to keep it within a box of rules that they operate in.
Yeah.
HR gets involved, things like that. Business owners try to be proper and all that, but I genuinely care for every single person that I work for. And part of my business model, and I don't know if I shared this with you guys, where they have access to my personal phone that they can text me, call me anytime and say, hey, I'm struggling right now. Can you help me? And I guarantee that within an hour, I will either text, call, or be on a call with them to help them through whatever they're encountering.
Wow.
So from the very get-go, everything is done from a point of love, because that's my superpowers. I love every single person. And that's why I do what I do. So when I have to have those conversations with them, I remind them, listen, this is coming from a place of love. I may not be the best fit for you, or you may not be the best fit for me client-wise, because our values are differing. And it comes down to the question of, say for instance, they're not doing the work, right? I'm giving them things to work on and they're not doing it. So I have that conversation with them. Why aren't you doing the work? What is it about the work that's, why did you decide at some point that you're not going to do this? Is it a commitment to yourself or not?
Yeah. I'm busy. I got too many things to think about. I'm running a business. I got kids, I'm on my fourth wife. This is just, life is going on and life is happening. And I'm just trying to keep up, man.
Yeah. But that's all a decision. That's all a decision, because
at
some point.
It is, because it's very easy to have, say, one aspect or one little thing in your life not going according to what you would like it to go.
Yeah.
And it tends to, if you let it, it can start breaking down the other parts of your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you get that mindset.
Right.
And then you think things are falling apart all around you when they're not.
Right.
But not everybody can, we're not born with this.
No.
Right, Victor? I mean, we just aren't born.
Right.
We aren't all born to be leaders. We aren't all born to be entrepreneurs. It just, and it doesn't matter. Whatever you're born to do, it takes a lot of work to do it well.
Absolutely.
A lot of work. A lot more than most people think, because we aren't trained. We're raised.
Right.
And, our parents want to make our lives as easy and pleasurable and happy as possible until we get out of college. And then they go, all right, now you're on your own. Good luck with it. Right? We're sheltered all the way through until we get out in the real world, and they say, okay, go get them.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, think about it. We're not, and this is a whole nother topic, and I might be opening just the lid of a can of worms. But educationally, we're not supported to learn the things that we need to learn to thrive in life. Right?
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. And I've done a massive amount of studying of our school system here in the last year plus, and it's sickening how we are 180 degrees from where we need to be, and going the wrong way fast. And like I always say, you can ask Americans where they think the American educational system stands compared to the rest of the world. We're number one. We're not even. We're lucky if we get top 20.
It's like, no, look at little Billy. He's the only one in step in the marching band.
Yeah,
that's my son.
But that's
American.
and we can go down that road. And I
Right.
want to say hello to Ted, Ted Legal. Thanks for joining in and love your comments and appreciate you being here. But we've been brainwashed, right? For
Pretty
lack
much.
of a better word.
Oh yeah. So okay,
Am I taking you in a different direction here?
No. This
I
is
like
good.
to throw curveballs.
I appreciate it. So from a young age, and this is where my experience with psychology and human behavior comes in. From about 6 years old, I was helping my biological mother study child development psychology because that's what she was studying in college. She was she's an immigrant. So I translated everything from English to Farsi for her at a young age.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And I saw early glimpses of the educational system on a higher level while going through the lower level crap myself.
Interesting.
I go through college and I read a study, and I'll bring the study statistic up in a second. I go through college, and when I was younger, I was a diehard liberal, like listen to everything left oriented, very pro everything left. Like let's share, let's do communism, all that. I travel the world, I go to college, I work in the world, and I realized that everything was just geared towards one certain mindset or approach to life, which is to make us all conformed, unified, listen to the folks up above us, tell us what to do, how to do it, because that's what they know. That's what their job is, to guide us. And I say that in quotes. You go live in another country like Belarus, like I did, you get followed by the KGB. You see how people live under a modern communist model where they're making $400 a month, and that's living rich for them. $400 US for them. That's living rich, but they can't afford to pay everything. So they have to do a second job or work under the table for a friend to make extra cash just so they can survive. And all this is taught to us from a young age in school, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I get out with my bachelor's degree and I look at it and I say, this is a great $15,000 piece of paper that I utilized nothing from in my professional career. Nothing. I've learned and applied more in business from the things that I've learned while working and running my own business, as well as working in the corporate world, than my 4 or 5 year degree, whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
So
look, I was a year and a half into college when I said, this is crap. And I walked.
So, all right. So you're familiar with the law of the lid. Yeah. So you're familiar with that too, right, Bill?
The law of the what?
Lid.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So a certain leader has ability to get you so far, you can only jump so high or whatever, right? It's the law of the lid. How do you help people break through that?
The leader or the individuals under the leader?
Well, yeah. So I'm just leaving a place where they brought me in to build a department. I've been there 2 years, and I've done everything I can with the resources available. And to which then I said, my time here has to be done because I can't get it any further. Right. But in the back of my mind, there's always that push harder. There's something you're missing. There's, but in reality, I've taken it as far as I physically or mentally, emotionally, ability wise, believe that I can.
There's a key word.
Right.
Believe.
Right. But that's the lid. So how do you help people break through that lid?
Okay.
Change that belief. Oh, you're just chomping at the bit there, huh?
So let me ask you this. What do you want? What's the lid that you want to hit next?
I don't know if there is one. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know if I foresaw one.
Okay. So, however grand your vision is, will be your altitude that you fly or you jump up in this case.
Okay.
So, if your vision is dialed in where you're just closed off, you can't perceive a possibility of something greater, then my first challenge to you would be to imagine yourself in the greatest perfect form of yourself. And what does that person look like? What does that person do? Because it's essentially we're doing a gap analysis. Where are you
Yeah.
now? And where do you want to be? But if you don't know where you want to be, you're going to stay in the now where you're stuck. You're hitting that top level, whereas Gay Hendricks would say you're not breaking through that glass ceiling.
And you need to be careful also, because what you've done is you've caged yourself. You said, given the resources that I had, okay, you've already put limitations on yourself with that statement. Because maybe I didn't use the resources properly. Maybe there was more to them. Maybe there were other resources I didn't even think of. Maybe, and here's the mind power and the mindset, right? Don't limit yourself. If people really knew what I thought about this business I'm building and where I think we can get it to, they would probably laugh at me. But I fully believe I know where I think I can get this done. Again, there's that belief again, and we've talked about this, this being probably the most important ingredient in the recipe of building a business. In my mind, it is if you don't believe that you're the one to do this and that you're going to do this and you're going to get this done, it's not going to happen.
To add to that, let's dive a little deeper. Let's dive into this a little bit.
Yeah.
What's your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is really to help people see things differently.
Okay.
And be happy doing it. I'm a people pleaser kind of guy, but it's really to question and help people see things differently.
Okay. How do you go about that?
I
What
piss a lot of
questions
people.
do you ask?
I poke the bear a lot. That's
okay.
What I do is I utilize a lot of how do I want to say it, critical thinking.
Okay.
And which I think we here in America lack a lot of. But I will listen, seek to understand, and then try to poke and expand on that. Is that fair, Bill?
Okay.
You think?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Poking. Well, Victor, I'll let you analyze.
So Ken, your purpose in life is to question people by poking them and prodding them. We'll use different terminology.
Yeah.
Because you analyze what they say.
Yeah.
So that's your purpose in life.
Yep.
Dive deeper. What's your purpose in life? Why are you here today with the two of us making it a trio? Why are you here?
To change the world, to change the way people think and look at things. I guess to change the world. Yeah.
So you're a world changer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How does a world changer act? What does a world changer do?
Continually pokes the bear, I think.
Deeper.
Believes in people. Believes that there's better in people. Believes that people aren't utilizing their capacity to maximize and have the best life possible.
Okay. What else does a world changer do?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good things, right? Yeah, because I want to change the world for good. So I think you do good deeds, good you send out good
Lead
vibrations.
by example.
Yeah, lead by example.
How does a world changer act? Do they act
Um,
out of love, malice?
oh yeah, always out of love, and yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And what does a world changer believe? What's the conversation that they have with themselves?
Well, I believe that I can change the world. That's the conversation I have. That God's given me the unique power to change the world, to be more positive. Yeah.
So where does a world changer need to be?
In the world.
In the world?
Well, out there, amongst the world, I guess. Yeah.
Well, so you want to reach as many people as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And we do this in business, right? It's like, all right, as a financial advisor, I'm reaching one person at a time. But how can I reach 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 100,000 people at one time?
Right. So let me give a follow-up statement and a challenge that I think everybody should do at one point in their lives. Actually, multiple times. But if you haven't done it yet, do it at least once. Begin with the end in mind. Write your obituary. And when you're writing your obituary, write down everything that you want everyone to say about you in a positive manner. What are they going to say at your funeral? What's all the work and the good deeds that you've done, the impact that you've made in the world that people are going to recollect and reminisce about?
Okay.
When you know that, and you can say, and I'll give you a snippet of mine. Victor was a great humanitarian, and he loved people with all of his heart, and he took care of those all around him. He was a brother, a father, a sibling, and he loved his 2 dogs like they were his own. All right. He impacted 10 million lives during the course of his life. So that last sentence, he impacted 10 million lives in the course of his life, is my purpose. It's what I'm doing, what I'm engaging in. And because I know what that is, that's the end goal for me. 10 million people positively impacted. It gives me something to work backwards retroactively and break it down to a daily task. Am I leaving every single person more positively energized or empowered than when I found them?
Wow.
Am I loving every person? And am I leaving them and their world a better place?
Yeah.
And so what you're talking about, and this is my good, wonderful partner, Deb Dietz, brings up, is about leaving a legacy. And that's going to be really hard to read. But that, that's what we're talking about here is you what is that legacy you want to leave? Because I think there's another way to go about this too. A lesson that I had learned from a place called the Center for Authentic Leadership out of Atlanta is start writing. Just start writing what it is you believe your purpose is.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, when you finish writing, you'll know it, and it won't be anywhere where you thought it was.
Yeah.
Yep. Do a mind dump 3 times.
Yeah.
So Shayna, and thanks for tuning in, Shayna. She asked Victor, is it possible to hit a creative ceiling and it's actually a slow death of passion to stay in a career or in that lane?
Absolutely. I mean, so, okay, let's dial it back. If a business isn't contributing to your growth, investing in your growth, investing in you, if your career is actually stifling and suffocating you instead of empowering, enlivening you, then it's time for a change, because the purpose of any sort of career is to grow. Is to have a course beginning and a course end, and you're moving along, hitting milestones, achievements, things like that. If it's killing parts of you, if its values aren't aligned with yours or yours aren't aligned with it, then yeah, it's time to move. Time to move. Either find another company whose values do support and empower you, or start your own business so that way you can be the literal master of the values and you live those every day.
And the signs are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're always there.
Yeah.
It's whether you see them, acknowledge them, and then make a commitment to make that change. Because I've seen this in people that hate how many people do we know? Everybody knows people that hate their jobs.
Yeah.
Yep.
But why won't they leave? Because they're making too much money.
Yeah.
So I think that mindset is changing for the younger generations, meaning anybody younger than me.
That's a lot of the world, Bill.
It's the majority. But, and I think that mindset is changing and shifting, but where the almighty dollar is not the end all be all. But the signs are always there. You have to choose whether or not you're going to acknowledge them and then make the change. Because I remember telling my wife that we were first year of marriage, and she would come home from work crying. She loved her job, but she was being forced to work.
Coming home.
Yeah, maybe hated coming home. But she was working 70, 80 hours a week. She was getting paid very little, and she was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I just said, this isn't working.
Yeah.
But she was afraid to make that change.
Yeah.
And I compelled her to do so by saying, you either have to change or I have to leave, because I can't live with you like this.
And now you said you're on wife number 4?
Yeah.
Earlier? Yeah.
Since my wife never watches the show, I can be on any wife number you want. But and she made the change, but it was very hard for her to do so. And she was very happy afterwards making the change. In fact, she was with that company she went with for 30 years. She loved it. But not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody sees it.
Yeah.
You were in it for 2 years, Kent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure was.
I left corporate America because of the stifling feeling that I had and the politics that went on.
Yeah.
I was told this by a director of mine. We're playing chess and you're one of my pieces. Literally told me this and then forced me to do something that was unethical.
Wow.
And it compromised my values. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, shit, I either do this and feel like garbage about myself, or I don't do it and I get fired. And then I feel even more garbage about myself.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest issues that I had about that whole structure is if the company is causing me to feel internal distress because of an action or a position that I'm put in, then that's not a company that I want to work for. The value match doesn't line up.
Yeah.
So I left. I shortly after that left.
Yeah.
It comes down.
I agree. I've been in those positions myself. Being asked to do things that I knew were not proper, let's say.
Right.
And I refused to do them. And I was shown the door.
Yep. I had another company in the software industry. They knew that one of our prospects had at least $1 million to burn on a project. They somehow found out. I don't know how. I just scoped it out for the client. I said, hey, this is what it's cost-wise it's going to be. It's going to be about $45,000 to build your project. My end of things, right? So I have a conversation. The VP of revenue gets involved and says, we're going to mark it up 10%. We're going to mark it up so that way it's around 300,000 because he's got the money to burn and we could do that. I said, no, I refuse. So a whole internal debate started between that VP, my director, the COO, the CIO, just over the cost of how much they should charge this guy for a service. And the CO, luckily, who was my upline in terms of the organization, said, you're not putting my sales guy in this position. He scoped it out. He gave the client the number tentatively. You're not raising it up. And if you are, that's on you, and that's your conversation to have with them. My employee has done his part.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's,
Well, we know there are ethical people out there in business. We know there are
oh, yeah.
unethical people out there,
Oh, yeah.
you know, as well. And we see them all. You know, as Ted points out, it's important to know your own worth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, but don't ever underestimate. I mean, for me, I've always thought the sky's the limit. I've always tried to hold a position where I controlled how much money I could make.
Mhm.
So, in other words, I was 100% commission
Mhm.
most of my life. That doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
You know, we do have the folks that can fly like that. There's folks that prefer that 9 to 5 job. I go in, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I do it
Right.
every day. I do the same things the same way. I know what to expect in return, and that's fine.
Yep.
You
Well,
know,
when it comes to the mind power, I think a lot of us feel as if it's not going to take work. It's a lot of work. What
Oh,
you
yeah.
as a master sales trainer, you're asking them to do a lot of work. And I think today a lot of us are like, oh, the mind. Let me listen to a motivational speech on YouTube, and I'm good, right? Um, or hey, I get the daily quote in my
I read
email
this
every
book,
day.
this self-help
Yes,
book.
yeah.
I'm all
Oh, yeah.
good. I did yoga this morning. I'm good.
So what you're asking people to do is hard. I'm still sitting
Can
here
be.
trying to go through some of the question that you ask. I'm writing stuff down, and I'm like,
Good.
and I'm a guy again curious, well read.
You have just messed up Kent's weekend, by the way, Victor,
And I'm
'cause
and I'm just like, this is hard. This is and a lot of us are going to bail after the first time I start to sweat just a little bit.
Right.
But I got to your point. I just that simple question. I'm just sitting here going, I've never dug that deep.
Well,
And that's a tough thing
You-
for people to do.
I would give yourself a little more credit than that. I think you have, and because you're, you know, a fine Christian man, and you know, this is a Christian-based radio station, so you put thought into these things.
Yeah.
But
I've never written down, affect 10. I mean, I've never worked backwards. I'm just running a race looking for the finish line. That's all.
right. But
Well,
what if you're in the wrong race? What if
I
you're
know.
out in
Yeah.
the wrong
That's
race?
that's what I'm starting to go, huh. Oh, okay.
you thought you were in a foot race, and everybody else is running full tilt.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What if you're on a motorcycle running 100, going a 100-mile race while they're running a 26.2, marathon?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's a scary concept for a lot of people is
Right.
that.
No, we
It
don't.
can be.
We aren't taught, and most people don't understand, especially solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and starting a business, how hard it is.
Yeah.
Because we have no idea everything that it takes.
Yeah.
And where do you go to learn all that? Because there's always going to be people that are willing to tell you what they think it takes, right? But be careful in taking anything you hear for verbatim.
This is a good one for as we're running out of time, but this is a good one. Is Shannon says, I'm watching companies try to fill positions at double reality rates and still are unable to meet needs. Companies have to realize the incoming are not as dollar driven. What advice would you give?
So if I was a prospect employee, I was interviewing with the company and they're offering me this much salary, this much PTO, but it doesn't line up with my values. I would tell them that. I would say, listen, what you're offering is great. Say it's 120K with 20 days PTO, but I value the PTO more than the salary for whatever reasons. I would say my values are more, I love my time to myself and my vacations with my husband or my significant other. And I'm applying this from Shayna's perspective.
Right.
So I would say, are you willing to negotiate? Because I'm willing to come down on my salary for more days off. I value my time, and therefore I value the days off that I have. Are you willing to negotiate with me or give me more days PTO? You talk to them about your value drive, because a lot of companies miss out on the values that are important on those incoming. And we're seeing a huge movement with the work from home that people want that flexibility to either work in the office or at home, depending on life's needs. I mean, if you've got to go take your dog to the vet at 2 p.m. and you work in 9 to 5, you have to leave work at 12:30 probably to go pick up your dog, go take the dog to the vet, come back, drop the dog off, and then be back at work at 4, and you're probably going to work there till 7.
Yeah.
Whereas a work from home balance, it's like, oh, today I could just work from home because I don't want to make the 45-minute drive to the office, drive back, pick up Bonzo, take him to the vet, drive back. It's an ordeal.
Well, we showed productivity went up.
There they are back there too. They're the two dogs. Right
Oh yeah. Yeah, those are my 2 assistants right there.
I've got one like that. But
yeah,
we're on the. I mean, this is
this could be an hour.
Victor,
and a half
I mean, we could go another 3 days on this. So we're going to absolutely have to get you back on here.
Yeah.
But we have run out of time, and I wanted to say we're going to have a Cinco de Mayo show next week.
Nice.
But Victor, I can't thank you enough. This is really interesting stuff. I love this conversation.
Yeah.
And you and I are going to have to continue it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
And again, visit his website. And because trust me, this is just a tip of the iceberg and what he does and how he does. And you too could be one of the 10 million lives that he could have.
Yeah. It's Victor, VICTOR dash. I can't read it.
Yeah. His last name.
Oh, Fralof.
Yeah.
FRALOF.com.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And yeah, Victor, so great to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
For all of us here, 21.6 The Net, we can't thank you enough for getting caught in the net. Make this weekend great. And until next week, signing off for Innovative Strategies.
Thanks, everybody, for listening in. And Victor,
thanks so much.
What a fantastic guest. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.